Welcome back to Sunrise on the Hill. The coffee has been refilled, so your morning pulse on politics continues to go strong. Just days after that big peace summit with Israel and Hamas, it seems like the peace deal the two sides came to agreement on is holding up.
All of the living hostages have been returned to Israel, along with over 1,500 detainees to Gaza. But there's still a holdup with the bodies of the hostages. Joining us now to talk more about a potential peace in the region, Princeton University's Dr. Lauren Wright. Good morning, Lauren. Thanks so much for being back with us.
Hey, guys.
So this was, no matter who you are, people have to acknowledge this was a momentous occasion.
Yep.
The fact that a peace deal was agreed to, that the fighting for now has stopped, that there is some sort of an agreement. But as difficult as this may have been, Lauren, it may in the end have been the easiest peace because now there has to be a road to governance, doesn't there?
There does, and that requires Hamas to absolutely unequivocally lay down arms and give up power. And that's the piece that I'm personally very worried about because, of course, the mission of their organization, their terrorist organization, is to destroy Israel, no matter how many deaths it takes, no matter how many years it takes. And so that's a radical regime that is willing to kill its members and innocent Palestinians and, of course, Israelis. And that's someone that's very, very hard to negotiate with, very untrustworthy. And so that's really the piece of the uncertainty going forward, more so than the Israelis.
Lauren, we had seen sort of an erosion of support when it comes to what Israel was doing in Gaza with its war against Hamas. What do you think happens now that this peace deal has been signed? Do things reset between the U.S. and Israel, and do you think public opinion will thus sort of reset?
Well, the public opinion in the U.S. is something I've looked really closely at, and it's pretty fascinating. The majority of the American public is still on the side of Israel. When Gallup, for instance, or Pew asks about it, most support Israel favorably over how they feel about Palestine when you break down the war into those very crude terms. However, among Democrats, opinion of Israel is the lowest it's ever been. Overall opinion of Israel has come down tremendously in the last 10 years. And so there are real divisions here. However, I don't think the relationship between Israel and the U.S. has ever been stronger. You don't need to look much further than Netanyahu's comments, the celebration happening all over the region as a result of this peace deal. And so I don't think it will be as much of a reset as a strengthened, even more so, relationship moving forward. And it does require a U.S. presence in the region, not in Gaza directly, but in the Middle East, absolutely, and a heavy U.S. hand in the diplomacy there and some of the security, logistical, and aid support, which is more important than anything.
Lauren, let's switch gears and talk about this tranche of messages that were posted on Telegram by the young Republicans. And it was racist, misogynistic. There were talks of, gas chambers and pro-Hitler stuff. Some people have lost their jobs. There's been a lot of pushback, although the vice president thought it was just kind of young people being young people. What's your impression of what was shared here and how significant it is?
I mean, people say pretty horrific things when they think they're in private. And, that goes for college students, that goes for teenagers, that goes for adults. And so I don't think no matter how you slice this is good for the Republican Party. And I don't really know how Vance is going to handle it moving forward. But one thing I can tell you is that because of how many things are going on in the larger political environment, it might not be such a long news story, even though how we talk to each other is more important than ever.
Laura, I don't know if you've talked to your students about this, but they're young. I mean, do they find this language acceptable, even when it is in private? I mean, no. I was in college too, but I never wanted to praise Hitler or anything like that.
Yeah, and they actually are very much in the mindset of we don't say anything to anyone anymore in private, on text, whatever it is, even if it's an encrypted app, that you don't expect to become public someday. And that especially goes for my students who want jobs in government. They want to have public facing roles. They want to change the world on all sides of the aisle, all ends of the political spectrum. That's where they are. And so actually the problem I see with my students more so nowadays is they're totally on the side of self-censorship. They're really worried about who overhears them, and they're overcautious and they're over careful, and it ends up in a place where they don't feel free to speak their minds ever. And that's sort of dangerous too.
We only have 30 seconds left, but it seems like guardrails on decorum have been blown up, that they almost don't exist any longer. How dangerous is that for us collectively?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the vast majority of Americans don't support this level of partisan strife that we see. They definitely don't support partisan violence. That's just not where most American people are. And, that's sort of a good reminder, even though when you do see incidents where people are threatening each other, it reaches the level of violence, it reaches the level of absolute hatred. Those are very disturbing. And so we need to remember that these things are happening, even if it's not among most Americans who do love their neighbors and want to seek common ground.
We should make clear decorum exists on both sides. Here in Virginia, we're dealing with an attorney general candidate who had horrific messages advocating violence. So, yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, the internet and text messages are forever. That's
absolutely, Corey.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.